Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you holding this important hearing, and all of our witnesses, we appreciate you for being here today. The Arctic's growing strategic importance has made it imperative that America is prepared to confront the unique challenges and opportunities that this region presents, and your experience and expertise is appreciated here today. Mr. Coffey, I'd like to begin with you and return to the questions that you were engaged in with Mr. Higgins. In particularly, you commented on some of the, I believe, common interests in Russia and China in that region. And I was interested in your perspective on whether there is an area where the interests of Russia and China in the Arctic diverge.
Well, thank you for that question. As I alluded to, Russia is very much the junior partner in this relationship. One of the consequences of international economic sanctions against Russia is that Russia has looked for other markets and China has swooped in to take advantage of the situation. Much of the energy that was once exported to Europe is slowly finding its way to other places, including China, and at below market rates. So China understands that it's in a position to benefit in the maximum manner from its engagement with Russia right now. Right now, Russia is so dependent on China that I cannot see a situation in the near future where Russia would become a strategic competitor against China. Certainly not one where Russia would align with us to counter China or try to go against China. In fact, I think it would be completely impossible for the U.S. to engineer such an outcome to the point that we shouldn't even try. And we should acknowledge that China and Russia will be our main strategic competitors in the Arctic region, and we should develop and prepare our national security architecture under that assumption.
Do you anticipate, or foresee any scenario where Russia could attempt to impede our access to the Northern Sea route, the United States or other countries?
Well, international sanctions has actually impeded the use of the Northern Sea route. If you look at data from last year, not a single cargo ship, foreign cargo ship used the route, and not a single ship of any flag made the full journey from Asia to Europe. Russia has claimed that a lot of the Northern Sea route is internal waterways and that certain fees must be paid in order to use this route. And then, of course, you are reliant on Russian search and rescue and Russia's ice-breaking capabilities, and that also incurs cost. So right now, I wouldn't say that Russia is preventing any internationally flagged ship from using the route. They either make it difficult or the geopolitical circumstances, in this case economic sanctions, make it cost prohibitive. The French have actually conducted freedom of navigation operations, the French Navy has, up along the Northern Sea route. As far as I know, that is the only NATO country that has done such a thing, but certainly the United States would be within its rights to do so. But whether or not right now would be the right time for that is a matter for policymakers.
And Mr. O'Rourke, I'd like to bring you into this conversation. What additional insight or perspective would you add to what you've been hearing on this subject?
Well, one of your earlier questions was about a divergence of interests, if any, that exists between China and Russia in the Arctic. There is potentially a latent one in the background that may become more in the foreground at one point, and that concerns the Arctic Council. China in the past has raised questions about the Arctic Council as the correct institution or forum for Arctic governance, because they are more on the outside of that than Russia is. Russia is one of the 8 voting states of the Arctic Council, and so there's a potential for the two countries to develop different viewpoints regarding the continuation of the Arctic Council as the primary international forum for Arctic governance. The other thing I will mention is regarding the Northern Sea route, the Russian legislature has been active. They have passed a new law regarding their regulation of the Northern Sea route that may put Russia more directly at odds with the U.S. legal position regarding those claimed internal waters. And whereas in the past, we may not even have had a basis for having a freedom of navigation operation because there was no excessive claim regarding government ships. That may have changed now with the passage of that new Russian law. And so that is another situation that is worth watching.
Thank you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.